Hello and welcome to another episode on Journey to Authenticity podcast, a podcast helping you to become fully authentic on your journey to success. My name is Braden Belknap and I'm a human just like you, striving to build a dream life, all while staying true to me. But what if you struggle connecting with your clients? What if you struggle even connecting with your spouse or your kids? What if you struggle with hardships in life, whether that's chosen hardships like alcohol, food, not eating healthy, or even situations that you come to battle based upon other people's choices that are out of your control? That's exactly why we have Jason Jenkins coming into today's podcast, because he's gone through that all. He's built businesses and had close people next to him working to build those businesses, stab him in the back and take his software. He's gone through a time in his life where he struggled in his marriage, relationships with his kids, and even with alcohol. Now he's built a life where he's able to live in true fulfillment and purpose, where he's taking his past successes in business and sales and connecting with people and coaching people to do the same. Jason, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks I'm pumped to be here. We've talked about it and now we're doing it.
Absolutely. A lot of things fell in line and just connected us together, and I'm grateful to be here.
I'm grateful to be here as well.
So what inspired sales coaching?
What inspired sales coaching was, I would say, was my journey. So 25 years in the financial industry, and I found myself, getting pretty good at that. And then about a decade ago, literally in 2014, people were like, hey, can you go and train some of our advisors because you got this down pretty well? And I'll never forget, I was in Atlanta doing this very first training. And when I was done, I was like, man, I really enjoyed that a lot more than working with clients. And the catalyst for me, and always has been, was one word, and it was impact. See, I looked out in the audience, I'm like, okay, each one of these advisors can go impact, let's say 300 households. And so if there's 100 in the room, you're like, that's some pretty cool impact. And so I feel like that's kind of where it began, and here I am, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah, when you're on the phones, meeting one-on-one with those clients, you make one impact on that person. And when you start to consult and coach, you train hundreds of consultants to go make those impacts.
That's correct. Fun. Yeah.
So finance, was there anything that triggered you to be like, I want to go there?
No, so my undergrad was in business and economics, and I got out of college. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And someone was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at life insurance. I was like, is that thing when people die, they pay it out? I was like, I think that's what it is, right? And I got out of college and I just was really good at it because, one, I was able to connect with people I felt pretty well. And two, I was like, oh, okay, well, this solves a problem. And I just kept it pretty simple. And I was like, cool, I'm doing really well, but I'm like, I don't really like this. And then I shortly met my wife afterwards, and then responsibilities come, I'm making more money. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this until something else figures itself out. And then you turn around and you're just like, okay, I'm kind of in this career. That's the honest truth. I got my MBA thinking, oh, well, I'll go get that. And then I'm going to go do something else. But that wasn't the journey I was supposed to be on, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Pivoting is the most important thing in this world.
Yeah.
Not quitting, not failing, just pivoting.
Yeah.
So you went life insurance, and did you meet your wife before or after life insurance?
I met her right after college. So the moment I got out of school, I started doing life insurance, and I met her 6 months later.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hottie Jenkins, right?
Hottie Jenkins. I love it. It's so funny because people are like, you call her, I'm like, she's Hottie Jenkins on my phone in my life. Her real name's Jennifer, but she's like this quasi celebrity everywhere I go. It's like, is she real? Yeah, she's real. It's so good.
It's important that I love that you married Hottie Jenkins.
Yeah.
And the reason being is stoked that I married Hottie Belknap over here.
There you go. There you go.
But that's not one of the most important decisions we make as men, in my opinion, is the one we marry.
I can't imagine life without Jennifer. She's been the most supportive person in my life. And she's one of one. I really feel like God designed her for me. I really feel like that. Absolutely.
When did you realize that?
I remember the moment that I knew I was sitting next to my wife. So for full disclaimer for the world, I guess, on this podcast, so in college, I was the guy that was going on a lot of dates. We'll just put it to you that way. You can read in between the lines. I was like, yeah, I go on 2 dates and they're like, hey, how is it? I'm like, I don't know. She's got a weird laugh. I'm out of here, or whatever. And so all my friends were like, 2-year relationships, and they ended up marrying their college sweethearts, and like, you're going to be single till you're 35. I'm like, I'm okay with that. Right. And I just remember meeting Jennifer, and I was like, God, she's not only hot, but she's fun, and we just get along. I just remember, if I had to put one word on it, we just enjoyed each other. And the truth of the matter is that she was just finishing up San Diego State to get her teaching credential, and I was making some money, and I would just remember sitting next to her one Sunday at church, and it was just like, I just felt this, you're sitting next to your wife. And I was like, okay, where did that come from? And I could just feel like I'm sitting next to my wife. I just knew one day. And that's all I can really say. And ever since then, here we are 25 years later.
Absolutely. You talk a lot about God, which I absolutely love.
Thanks.
Were you always religious?
I grew up in a faith-based home. So I guess to check that box, yes. But I think all of our journeys with our faith that's personal, right? And meaning that it ebb and flows. You kind of have to go touch it on your own to be like, okay, this is real. And for me, as I've walked through life, where faith has been close or maybe sometimes at a distance, it's always been there, but where I really have had to lean in and be like, okay, God, like this is a trial. And the more that I've leaned in on that, the more he's shown up in my life. And so, yeah, it's always been there, but maybe not just to the certain degrees.
Sounds like you just leaned into we just talked about on my last podcast with can I talk?
Yeah.
Podcast with Alex is your fight with God. And it's important to more lean into that and have that fight with God than shut that voice off.
Totally.
Because when you lean into it, maybe a journey to getting that, but once you do get it and you fully embrace what God's trying to tell you, you win in life.
You do. I would say one of the advantages I probably have over you and Alex is I'm a little bit older now, I guess. And the one thing that I have with that is time. And I've watched God be diligent and faithful to his promises. And that's kind of encouraging in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. There's a lot more evidence.
Yeah.
Proof in the pudding.
Proof in the pudding. This makes me older.
Absolutely. So you went through college, you got your MBA, started life insurance, met Jason Jenkins.
Yep.
How long were you in life insurance for?
I mean, that moved me into becoming a full-time advisor. You know what I mean? So technically I got my Series 65. For those listening, that's my securities license, to where that was in 2007. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go do this. We're going to make this happen. I'm going to take it serious. And so that's kind of when I became a financial advisor, so to say.
Okay, perfect. And were you working under a business at that point, or did you start your own?
It was my own. Yeah. I've been an entrepreneur forever until I sold my company.
That's phenomenal. And so what age did you start that business? What age did you sell?
So I'm in financial practice. So December 20th of 2007 is when I got my license. So walked into 2008. So it's a great time to start raising assets in the market. That's my joke. So
that is a good joke.
Terrible time. But what was really great about it though, was I had a chance to see a lot of people on the other side of that got injured from, just overexposure risk and so on. And they had to radically change their lives. And so coming out of that crisis, and I was trying to help as many people as I could, this question, every entrepreneur question, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this. And so from that, I fell in love with two topics, behavioral finance and neurofinance, and how we've been studied as humans, how we respond to things. I was like, dude, this is super cool. So I spent 2.5 years of my life researching, wrote my first book, Break It, 5 Rules Every Investor Must Break, thinking, hey, this is my way to go out to the world and just, help as many people as I can. And what I did is I found the problem. People are super emotional about money, surprise. But what was the solution? And the solution was people wanted, when they hired an advisor, meaningful and timely communication. And so I was like, well, why did somebody figure that out? So I built a company software called Asset Lock. So it was a communication tool around your 401k. And I built this prototype. This is in 2011. And I shared it with a couple of clients, and it just took off. It was just like, whew. So going back to 2014, when I first coached, that coupled it with I started licensing the software. And that kind of started this whole new journey. So I sold my personal practice in 2016. And I'm like, I want to see how far I can take this software company, and take that all the way to August of 2018 when I sold it to the private equity firm. So, That's a little bit of the journey.
That's a crazy journey.
Yeah.
Crazy exciting though, right?
Yeah. So, and so 2014, I was a financial advisor of the year. I've done a TED Talk. I've had just some really great blessings along the way inside the career.
So let's talk about the hardships.
Yeah. I've got some of those for you.
The bear.
Okay.
What was your hardest time in your career?
I would say 2016. So I had built AssetLock and we had licensed it to this company that literally was just starting off. It was a little bit of a crapshoot. I'm like, sure, I'll license it to you guys. And we literally took them from zero to hero. And so they started cutting us some really big checks. And basically they didn't like that idea anymore. So they thought they would copy the technology. So behind my back, they copied the technology. They had bigger attorneys and so on. I literally woke up one day, I'll never forget. I was in Sarasota, Florida when this happened. Someone called me, one of these advisors said, hey, dude, like, what is this other software? It sounds like AssetLock. And within 48 hours, they had relaunched the software and began to literally just strip away all the clients. And I'll never forget the principal, Steve, and I won't say his last name. And he was like, yeah, if you want to get some attorneys, go for it, but good luck. And I just was like, what just happened? I watched, me go all in. Remember, I sold my financial practice and I went all in on this. And I was like, dude, I'm looking around going, what just happened? So I've always been gritty. I'm never going to quit. So that part was, plus I had to provide. But I remember just tumbling down into, if my journal was here, I literally would read it to you. It was like, I don't understand this, God. This is kind of bullshit. This sucks. And I was angry. I was bitter. I was fearful, drinking, eating like crap. You name it. It was just boom. And I just, for a good year and a half, it was dark. It really was.
So taking that deep, did that affect only you, or did you see it affect your marriage?
Oh, it affected our marriage 100%. In fact, again, for full transparency, it turned into, so my wife literally has been a stay home for 21 years. And so she didn't go get a job or anything like that. And because we didn't want to compromise that goal. And so cool. But there was times I would get so pissed. I'm like, well, what did you do today? Let me tell you what I did today. I worked my ass off. I'm pissed. I have all this pressure. You don't have pressure. You know what I mean? So I would just be a jerk. Like that sucks. You know what I mean? She's like, we're on the same team. And I literally would just be a total jerk about it. And that's just not cool, So yeah. And my kids, they didn't see their dad necessarily have all that pressure, but there wasn't a lot of joy in my life at that time.
Sure. And so you mentioned drinking, overeating. Fill us in on that story and what that looked like in that time period.
It was just, I'm not taking care of myself. So great. Let's have, 3-4 cups of coffee in the morning. Let's go eat some Subway sandwich with 2 regular Cokes. Come home from dinner, I don't know, just a pile of spaghetti, 2-3 glasses of wine. If we're not going to have more wine and a whiskey, let's go have some ice cream. Add those macros up. You know what I mean? Not much protein, but a lot of fat and carbs, right?
Absolutely.
So if you want to know how to get to 255 pounds of softness, well, I can show you that path,
Yeah.
It was just, and I missed the whole thing. You were at that training when I shared my story, what the shift was. That was the downside to it, right? But I didn't quit. And so I rebuilt it back up. I went and got new clients. And I sold that business in August of 18 to this private equity firm. And then it was like a whole nother level of insanity. I was like, oh, I'm working hard. No. I wasn't working hard. This was, okay, now you're going to be gone 3 weeks out of the month. And you're going to go have 100 times the responsibility. Because I went from 7 employees to, okay, welcome to corporate America. You're now the CMO of this company. Okay. You know what I mean? I knew I could do it and I knew I had the skill sets, but it was just like, it's corporate and you know what I mean? And just all that other stuff that comes with it. And it was just like rocket ship. And so then I was almost like I had something else to prove. I'm like, hey, you just wrote me a check for this business. Oh yeah, you hired the right guy. I'm going to show you, here I come, right? The competitive side of me. And so we're crushing it, right? But it was just, I continued to I had all of this baggage I hadn't worked on. So it was Monday, August 10th, 2020 at 4:30 in the morning when I got out of bed and I went over to the bathroom sink and I asked myself one question. And the question is, would I follow you? And my response was maybe. And I remember saying out loud, I'm like, maybe? Because dude, I was like, I was so proud of all these things that I had knocked down. Why my response was maybe? Because here's why, Brendan, because the person that I physically was in the mirror, there was another Jason. He just had not manifested himself yet. And I made a commitment that day. I was like, no more. I'm going to go build that guy. And that's what I've been doing ever since that day. And you've heard me say this, and I want to say it for the audience. I said, imagine this. Imagine the metaphor is you see in the distance, you're in a forest. It's cold, it's dark, it's kind of snowy. And in the distance, you see the mountaintop where you're supposed to be. And as you climb up this mountain, out of nowhere, guess who shows up? The bear. And that bear represents your fear, greed, anxiety, laziness, whatever it is, because we all have them. And you have three choices. Your first choice is to see him and run right back down the mountain. He doesn't exist. He's not there. Your second option is to do nothing, to simply repeat the same bad habit over and over. So if it's fear for you, you know what I mean? And you just toil in it and it doesn't get you in. If it's drinking and you wake up the next morning and you're like, damn it, you repeat the same thing. Or your third choice is to fight. And when you choose to fight, you choose to see freedom on the other side of that bear. And the difference of fighting the bear and what we're told in society is the following. Hey, what are you going to go do? Right? What are you going to do? What are you going to go make? What, how, blah, 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 and so on. When was the last time somebody said, hey, who are you trying to be? It's the who, not the what. Because see, when I build the person, then the what just naturally comes, right? You can put me in any environment. Hey, Jason, we're going to go start a dry cleaning business. I'm like, sweet, we're going to go figure it out. Hey, we're going to go do this because the person who stands there is stronger, knows who they are. Because we talked about this before we started, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm going to go build. It's awesome. And I know you are. But the question would be is this, what does it look like on the mountaintop? Could you describe that person to me? You could, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
Well, then all you got to do is pull that person back down and be like, okay, well then what are the habits that person does? And then you just go, well, they don't do this and they do this. Well, okay, that's what I've got to go do. And so that's been part of my journey and I love your question because you got to go into the dark moments to really find the fruits. And so that's kind of been my journey almost for the last decade.
Absolutely. Beautiful story. Absolutely. Thanks. We got to go kill that bear every day. Every day
we have to kill him.
So ever since you have overcome your bears, have you ever returned back?
So you don't ever overcome them. What you do is you shorten the time that they take from you. So fear still shows up. When I think about the people that screwed me, because I had some people that were really close that screwed me, it's like, oh, there's that feeling. It's bubbling up, right? So instead of something taking 5 months out of my life or 5 hours, I'm like, okay, we fought this for 5 minutes. You lose, and I'm moving on. I just don't let the bear manifest itself anymore in my mind. You see what I'm saying? The alcohol. If you talk to somebody who truly battles with alcoholism, oh, when did you get over that? I didn't get over it. It's still there every freaking day. They'll tell you that. It's just I choose to fight that moment, right? So, yeah. So new bears come, right? There's always a bear to be fought that never goes away. And there's some. I mean, I'll give you the one that's I should say I've over the whole drinking thing. I never had a problem with it, but there was something that I had embedded in my habit. Okay, stressful day, man, I'm just going to go drink a bottle of wine because that sounds really good and wash it down with a whiskey or something like that afterwards, right? Okay, that doesn't even cross my mind now. Honestly, I look at old photos 5 years ago. I don't even recognize myself. It's hard to mentally describe. I'm like, okay, I know that's me, because that's my kids and I can see me in there a little bit, but I'm like, that is just, I don't even recognize a person. I'm serious. It's really hard to describe, but it's exciting.
But that's beautiful.
Oh, it's awesome.
Because Tony Robbins talks a lot about this and I embody it a lot in my own life as well as in my coaching clients. I instill this and I drive this home in my own practices, and it's the concept of identity.
Yes.
And you've spoken about this. What does that version of you look like on top of that mountain? What are their habits? What are their standards? What is that person? Who is that person? Bring it down. Live as that person today. And as long as you never quit, you're going to accomplish the top of the mountain.
Yep.
As long as you never quit.
Yep.
To speak to that, if you really are not a smoker and somebody hands you a cigarette, are you going to take it? No, because you're not a smoker. But if you're a smoker, you're obviously going to take it. What I hear is you've completely transformed your identity.
Yeah.
That's why you can't see that person anymore.
You can't. That's exactly right. You know, what we choose to see, you can't see something you can't hit. That's it. So what I choose to see is a different version of Jason every day. Listen, I have good days and bad days, just we all do. But if I'm constantly making sure that boat is pointed in the direction that's going to take me to where I need to be, then I'm going to be good. And I keep that feedback. Like I have, tools that I use to keep my feedback really close. So if I'm having a bad moment, it's like, oh, hold on, we're bringing this thing back to center. Because I think that's the biggest other downfall is we don't have those mechanisms to make sure that we don't drift off base. How many times you heard someone like, man, that was a fast year. Where'd that month go? You know what I mean? Try to be purposeful in the life or time will just run past you.
I've recognized that. So I was never fat. I would have considered myself chubby, but you become unaware.
Totally.
You're like, man, I look pretty good.
Yeah.
You try. Oh, I can kind of see that six pack in there, and you try to start to negotiate with the fact that where you're at is okay.
Correct.
And the truth is, you're not okay.
You're not okay.
And you need to be honest with yourself because that's what sets you free.
It simply comes back to the who over the what. Every day, all day, period, end of story. If I would have been told that at a younger age, 20x my life in every aspect, in every single aspect, because that's what I would have focused on.
So let's bring it back to the day you looked at yourself in the mirror and you said maybe.
Yeah.
What was that journey to overcome yourself, to choose a new version of yourself every day?
What was that journey like? It was actually really awesome. So I type A personality. I'm like, I need something hard. So I was like, cool, I'm going to try this 75 hard thing. And it resonated with me, so I was like, oh, this is tough. This is exactly what I want. So physically that allowed me to latch into that. And then the other thing I did at the same time is I found a group of men and women that were actually a little bit ahead of me in life, but they were asking some of those kind of halftime questions, if I could put it that way. What do I do with my second half? And it was really just a great group that really dug into the heart. So it was a lot of, hey, we're going to go dig. And there's really no end purpose or goal to it besides we're going to go do this for a year. Do you want to join the journey? I'm like, yeah, I like that idea. And it was through that process that I discovered three things. I discovered that in order to fight the bear, the first is you have to subtract. You have to remove the things that don't belong to make space for what does. Because everyone says, hey, you got to do more, go do more, do more. And nobody says, well, hold on a second. How about we remove stuff first so that there's space? Because we only have 24 hours. You, me, Elon Musk, and everybody on the planet. That's it, right? So what's got to go? Then the second tool was the power of regret. So every night, I'll do tonight before I go to bed, I'm going to think about my day. Hey, what did I do too much of that I shouldn't have? Or what should I have done a little bit more of? And that could be from, hey, I ate too much of this. I drank too much of this. I was kind of a jerk. I should have been nicer, whatever. Or, hey, I should have an extra push-up. I should have made an extra phone call, an extra email. You know what I mean? I should have said I was sorry when I could have. I could open the door for that late, whatever it is, right? What that does is it gives me the feedback, and everyone's like, hey, at the end of the day, you should be thinking about gratitude. I'm like, cool, but gratitude doesn't really help me get better. It doesn't, right?
It doesn't.
No, it's like, listen, I'm grateful to be here with you. I'm grateful that our paths have crossed, and I mean 100% for that. So subtraction, regret, and then the third thing, and the hardest one, is courage. You have to have the courage to face your bears. You have to be looking in the mirror and say, I'm done. I'm done getting my ass kicked. And only you can decide that. I mean, you know how much speaking I do. And I've literally gotten to a point when I'm on the stage, I don't care what the people think about me in a respectful manner, because I'm like, I'm here because I have something to say and somebody in this room needs to hear it. I just don't know who it is. That's my job. And I'm like, yeah, 100% you're going to hear me, but about 10% of you are actually going to do something with it. And everyone kind of freaks out. They'll sit straight up and they're like, 10%. I'm that 10%. You know what I mean? Let's go charge the hill kind of thing, right? But it's just the truth. You, the person, you're the only person that can fight your bear. Your spouse can't fight it for you. Your best friend cannot fight it for you. Only you can, not even your counselor can fight it for you. Okay. You know, you have to simply choose to fight that because you know what you're supposed to do, right? I mean, you might have to forgive someone that maybe doesn't, deserve it, but it's holding you back. Hey, I want to get in shape. Well, drinking too much and eating pizza and donuts every day is probably not going to help. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need more information. We just need more action in our lives. And so that takes courage. But what I know is that when I focus on what's got to go, subtraction, I use regret as my daily tool. And then I simply have the courage to see him. That's why I refer to the bear and fight it. And guess what happens? This is exactly what happens. I begin to tell the world that I'm setting a new standard. I'm like, no, 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 and yes. I raise the flag for my standards. And so when I then go to my regrets, I'm like, well, I should do less of this and more of this. I set what? Habits. And that is why standards plus habits will always equal results. So hopefully on my tombstone, not too soon, but who knows, in the far distant future, they'll be like Jason Jenkins, October 1st, 1974 to who knows when. And they'll be like, yeah, he was a badass husband and father. And it literally will say standards plus habits equal results. And that's it, because that's what I've come to realize and know. And I've literally, before we got on here, I remember I showed you something. She's down 40 pounds, someone that works with me. And that's all she's leaned into. She told the world there's a different Carlene, and she re-engineered her habits. And there you go.
Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, dude, I love it.
Standards plus habits equals results. And the truth is, if everybody listening, you just simply remember that, you'll need nothing else in life.
That's it.
Because, again, we're looking at that person at the top of the mountain. Now, everybody has a different mountain.
Correct.
Some people want to be a 9-to-5er. Most people we're talking to right now want to be the entrepreneur. They want to go make a big impact. Either journey's okay.
Yeah.
You got to make that right decision for you.
Yes.
Whatever that is, standards plus habits will get you the result at the top of the mountain.
Every time.
But if you look at that person and you don't change your habits nor your standards, the truth is you'll never get it.
Correct.
That bear will eat you alive. He's
going to destroy you, and he's going to smile right at you, and he's going to be like, I win. You'll never fully realize it. And on August 10th of 2020, that's what struck me, is I was willing to fight for the very first time. I literally was 45 going on to 46. I was like, and where I sit today, I was like, gosh, man, why did somebody not throw this in my face when I was 21? Seriously, I would be so much farther along. But that's okay. You know what I mean? Because now I've been given this experience, meaning that I've earned it. And this idea and this voice and my talents of like, God's like, all right, we got to go help some people. I'm like, I'm up for that. Let's go do that. That's super cool to me.
So the question that's popping up in my head right now, because we're talking a lot about mountains and the person that you need to become in order to get that. You, in your worst time in life, for your life, your deepest, darkest moments.
Yeah.
You were at a moment at your mountain that most people dream of.
It's true.
So why do you feel that you were able to accomplish that mountain without becoming the person that you needed to be to accomplish that on an average person?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. That's a great question. I've always been driven. I've always been gritty. I'm not going to quit. That was always in my DNA. I was always focused on helping others and solving problems. So if I had to put that in a blender, there was a servanthood to it. There was, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do the things. I'm going to do it the right way. So I feel like all of that was a catalyst to making that happen. But there now that I see where I'm at today, it's like, holy smokes, there's so much more, right? And that's not a monetary thing that I'm discussing. It's truly a holistic perspective.
Honestly, what I'm hearing, I retract that question truthfully, because you're right. You actually did become the person that you needed to in order to get that mountain. But for you to go to your next mountain,
correct,
you had to become a different version of yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way. I mean, I love the question. So seriously, I love that question. And yeah, so maybe just not intentional, but just like just growing up, I just remembered at a young age. I'm like, oh, so you did 10 push-ups? Well, great, I'll do 11. Hey, we're gonna dig holes. Let's go dig some. You know what I mean? It was cool, but I've always, there's always been a spirit of I want to help others. That's always been a part of me.
Absolutely. So my next question, and this is you talk about holistic life, and we need that. I fundamentally believe, and not just believe, but know that one, I need to be the best version of myself first. And then my marriage comes second, and then my kids, and then the rest of the relationships will naturally fall into place.
Correct.
You transformed yourself. What did you do to transform your relationship?
You mean with my wife and the kids?
With your wife specifically, because you mentioned it was a harder time for you and your wife at that time. So coming out after you looked at yourself in the mirror and said, I would maybe follow you.
Yeah.
What did you also do to help heal that relationship? Because you guys are thriving now, and I love seeing it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So what did you do to transform that?
I showed up, and I didn't really tell her. I told her what I was going to do once. I'm like, I'm done. And she'd heard that before. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm done with this or whatever. But I said, I'm done. I apologize for unnecessary pain that I've caused over the years. So I owned it 100%. Because before it was kind of like, well, I'm pissed because this happened, or you know what I mean? I owned it, but I didn't. So I owned it, said, I'm sorry, you deserve better. And I'm going to go build the most badass husband ever. And I just started doing it. I wanted to let my results speak louder than the words. And that was it. And I did that across the board. I'm like, people are going to feel me. They're not going to hear me. They are going to feel me. And that's what I did. And this last Sunday, it's so interesting you asked this question. Jennifer told me, so my son Hunter said, you know, Dad's changed, and and it's inspiring, and he's my hero. That's pretty cool.
That's phenomenal.
And so we're getting real today. And I mean, what better thing if I left tomorrow and I was dead broke, but that's my legacy, then I've accomplished that. But I also know that I understand too, Brandon, is this. I have to earn that every day. I have to earn that every single day. I don't have the luxury like, okay, well, he said it once. I could lose that tomorrow, right? I could go do something stupid, you know? But no, you got to honor yourself. You got to respect yourself about the commitment that you made, right? And to show up every single day to have no more breath in your body, you know? And so that's what I did with Jennifer. And so she began to blossom in her own way. You know, there was a deeper sense of love and commitment, of trust, and all of these things, you know, that if she was here, she's like, oh yeah, he's a different guy. That's what she would say, you know? So it's cool. You know, when you hear your wife, she's like, dude, you look hot. You know what I mean? I'm like, awesome. Cause I look around, I'm almost 50. You know what I mean? And I see other 50-year-olds. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm like, yeah,
like, you look good.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm like, hey, we're rolling. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm like, cause I want her to be proud of me in every aspect possible. So I don't say that just as a physical thing. I mean, every aspect. I want her to be loved and cherished, but I had to own it. And then I kept my mouth shut. I'm like, I'm going to let my results just speak and speak so she can feel my love. When I take a stage, you've been there. People, dude, this dude's real. This guy, he's coming in hot, because this isn't someone just yelling and we're going to walk across hot coals today and rah, 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 right?
Take your shirt off.
Take your shirt off, right? You know, it's like, no, we're here to help and we're going to go. So who wants to go? Because think about this. If you had the cure for something, would you hide it or would you proclaim it? You proclaim it. Dude, I got to go help some people. And like, to me, that's just kind of where I'm at.
You almost moved me to tears, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll tell you why. I'd love to just take a moment for a story.
Yeah.
Apologizing sets people free. And not like you mentioned, I apologize, I'm pissed because of XYZ and this person. Fuck that,
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
But genuinely apologizing. And apologizing can be scary. So this last year, I was in a fight with God.
Okay.
A big fight with God.
All right.
And for the longest time, so me and my wife, happily married, by the way, like genuinely happy. Best decision of my life. We got together at 16, young age.
Wow.
My parents are divorced. Her parents are divorced. We had no example of love. None. I barely remember my childhood. I just don't. And
That's how my wife is.
So sometimes, you know, sure, could that be an excuse? Absolutely. I own my behavior. But about a year-ish into our no, I don't even remember. We broke up. We both made some bad decisions, to say the least. Some bad decisions that I had to apologize for, that I hadn't. And we've been married for a while now. But it was weighing on my shoulders for so long. And to God, I was like, but I changed. I don't need to apologize. But I changed. So I don't need to apologize because bringing that up might hurt her feelings. It might bring her back to a bad place.
Yeah.
And the moment that I said, God, I hear you, and I apologized, I genuinely believe it set us both free. Ever since that point, I've become the best version of myself.
That's awesome. I love that. First of all, props to you for listening and then taking action on that. I respect that.
You have to. It's a must.
Yeah, you have to.
And that's what I feel about with you, is because we're sitting here having this conversation. And that's why I talk that you have to master yourself first. And then your marriage, then the rest of your relationships will fall into place. I'm going to speak from an external perspective. I could be wrong here. But my assumption would be is if you went and built the biggest, baddest version of yourself and didn't build your marriage, your kid probably wouldn't. Hunter probably would have not said that about you. But the fact that you owned yourself, both you and your wife chose each other to build each other up in your life. That's what allowed that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting here talking about this online. And truthfully of the matter, being seen can be a scary thing, especially putting it out to the world.
Totally.
But the moment you start to live authentically in your life, it sets you free to share your story, to go make a big ass impact in the world.
Yeah. I don't think I'm sitting here on this podcast if it wasn't just for your listener. You had a chance to come hear me talk and train for a day, but I don't think I'm here if I didn't share that bear story. That's my gut feeling. Maybe like, hey, Jason, really cool with some of the skills, that I taught, and I think I'm pretty decent at that. But just getting to know you in this short period of time is you're like, okay, this guy's not bullshitting up here. What else is there? I think that's what brings us here on your podcast is the authenticity, because this world needs more of it, right? We need more genuineness of this is who I am and this is what I can do. And, so that we all stand on the shoulders of others. I can learn from you. You can learn from me. Like that's the spirit that I try to take into it as much as I possibly can, because that's what I believe.
Amen to that. I got to ask you, man, I'm curious. What did you think about me in the audience? Or do you even remember?
Oh, I know. I remember where you're at, where you sit. I mean, I thought, hey, there's this young guy's just taking it all in and, more on the quiet side, I should say, right? But
I was quiet. That's why I was curious.
But then I remember the conversation afterwards. That's what struck me. I was like, you really leaned in and you were really complimentary. But it was just, you asked a couple really smart questions, and I always appreciate that because it tells me someone's paying attention.
Absolutely. Did you ever listen to my testimonial?
I did, and it was friggin' baller. So
thanks.
I was like,
that's what I was hoping for.
No, like that. I've actually repeated. You know what I want to say to you, and I'm glad I could say it on your show. It's probably the kindest thing anybody's ever said to me in a professional setting, ever. And I've gotten a lot of compliments and a lot of award. It is probably the kindest thing anyone has ever said about me personally, and so you need to know that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was like I was taken back. I was like, whoa. It was just, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss for words. It was just the kindest, inspiring thing anyone's ever said about me.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to your kid, it's what your kid sees in you, I see in you.
Thanks.
And just to shine a light on the topic that for one of the main parts of that testimonial is there's motivated people, there's inspirational people, and then there's aspirational people. Motivated people speak because they feel good for a moment, but they don't always act. Inspirational people are on a pedestal. People dream to get where the inspirational people are. But the truth is, the inspirational people are always living an authentic life simply because they want to be on that pedestal. And Jason, here's aspirational. Aspirational is the fact of living an inspired life, but also being able to come back down to somebody's level and bring them back up to where they're at. And I'm excited to see where your son ends up over the years, because you being that aspirational person, of course, he's going to go on his own journey and figure his things out, but you're going to be able to help guide him and bring him up to being an aspirational individual as well.
Thanks. Listen, just hearing you say it again, it's the coolest thing anyone's ever said. I really appreciate it, because if the world can receive that, then I feel like I'm doing my job. Because one of my favorite quotes is that old men plant trees that they'll never sit in the shade of. It's an old Greek statement. And if you let that really resonate, that's what it's about, right? You understand that your legacy is found in others, and then it truly doesn't really blossom in your lifetime. It's found in other people's lives. And so that really, I hold on to that. And that's what brings me here. And that's what makes me do the things that I do. And that's why I told you before we started, at 49 and a half, I feel like I'm just getting started. And that's exciting to me. You know, I was on another podcast where I came over here and he's like, so when are you going to retire? I'm like, well, I mean, I could, but how's never sound? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't view it that way. I mean, I'm literally here telling you, almost at the age of 50, I'm like, what are you talking about? I can be doing this when I'm 83. You know what I mean? Yeah, I might not look the same or move the same, but hey, you know what I mean? My voice and my spirit will be stronger.
Hey, if you keep up the hard work, you might just be going longer.
That's right.
100.
Hey,
today's technology. Keep kicking ass, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's so true.
I agree. Retirement? Question mark? What's that?
I don't get it.
People retire from the lives that they don't enjoy. Truthfully, that's what I see.
100%.
If you truly love what you do, which is what you should build your life around, why retire?
Yep.
I saw a post the other day and it was questioning why retirement? Why do people plan for it? And obviously there's some good reasons. Let's be real. I mean, you've been in the financial industry. The other aspect to this is he's like, I invest in my business and naturally my sphere of influence gets better and X, Y, Z. So I value that more. That's your retirement, bro. You love your life.
Totally.
That's something to celebrate.
100%.
Other people are looking for it to retire from their life.
Yeah.
And when you find that in life, which I'm so grateful to be 24 and have found my passion way back when I was before reaching 20.
That's killer.
I'm so grateful for the fact that I'm podcasting and I've built a successful podcast at this age. If you're not my age and you haven't found that, you're at 49 and you find it, or at your 70, be grateful, because some people never find it.
100%. And that's my attitude about it. That's 100% my attitude. So there's a sense of urgency. You know what I mean? So somebody's like, hey, what's your biggest fear? It's just, there's a sense of urgency in me, you know, because I am 50 and I'm like, I mean, I'm only looking forward, but I look back, I'm like, dude, that kind of went a little fast. And, you know, when I was 35 or 24, I'm like, dude, 50s, that's a long ways away. And like, that's for old people, it seems like, you know. Now I'm here, I'm like, first of all, it's not for old people, you know, but I think you get my point, you know. It's so true for literally in the last, ever since August 10th, 2020, I started to chip away and, okay, now this is what I was meant to do. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So that's why I say it with so much enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
I would lose all that I have, the stuff. I told Jennifer this. I'd like, hey, if I had to lose all the stuff to find this place to rebuild, I said, I will quadruple the stuff in the next 5 years. Meaning that my purpose and my passion and my impact, I know what I believe I'm going to be able to bring to the world is so much greater than what I've done before. I feel like I've done some cool stuff, but I really do. I personally believe that because I see it. I really do.
I agree 100%. I want to share a quote, and I'm probably going to say it wrong. And I'm going to have my beautiful, sexy wife over here and do all the things. Goes, and what's that actor's name? He's a dwarf.
Is he the one in the, what's that? Was that, I don't want to say sitcom, the series with the dragon?
Yes.
Okay. I know who you're talking about.
He has this famous speech that has gone viral with Warner Bros. And things like that. I genuinely have listened to this speech minimum monthly. In other words, sometimes I've listened to it 5 times a day because it just inspires me right back. But a part of the speech, he says, ever fail, ever try, fail again, try harder, fail again, try harder.
Yeah.
Again, I'm saying this wrong. Everybody needs to go listen.
I've heard the speech. It's inspiring.
And it's just that. It's going on an adventure. We're talking about finding a purpose, wanting to do something forever, and really enjoying that and leaning into it. I believe purpose comes down to 3 things, and you could add a 4th if you wanted. 1, what you're naturally good at. This is usually what God has gifted you. Mm-hmm. Let's also remember that what God gifts you, he can take away.
It's true.
2, what you love. Just because God gifted you something, flipping you off. Just because God gifted you something doesn't mean you love it. You have the power of choice as well. True. And the truth is, we're all good at probably a lot of things in life. Doesn't mean we're going to love all of them. And 3, what you can make an impact with. If you lean into that, naturally, you're going to make money. Go on adventure. You went from life insurance to financial consultant to starting a software company, which, by the way, even though it's in the same industry, is completely 2 different jobs.
Yep.
To coaching, to writing a book, to speaking, to putting on events, to podcasting.
Yeah.
You've gone on an adventure and you found your purpose. When you give yourself permission to look at the person at the top of the mountain, ask who is that person, you chase that person, the mountain's not a straight line.
No.
You're up the mountain. You have thousands of options of how you could go up that mountain. Give yourself permission. Pivot. Maybe you try something for a week and you hate it. Okay. Pivot.
Yeah.
You're walking up the mountain. And after so many pivots, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20 pivots. You'll find your purpose.
I believe that. I think that when you work in tandem on leading with the who, then the what is a trail behind it, right? Because what you're saying is, hey, so what is my passion or what is my purpose? You know, those kind of elements. Well, those manifest themselves by going through life and doing kind of micro tests, you know what I mean? And small probes, right? Of, hey, I'm going to go tinker with that. Nah, I don't think that's for me, right? I'm going to go tinker with this. And that's okay. Give yourself permission to do that. It's a saying of, hey, do you like Chinese food? You're like, well, I've never had it. Okay, well, let's go try it. You know, I mean, yeah. It's, you know, you have to walk through life and touch it and feel it as much as you possibly can so that you can discover, well, these are my talents and this is where my heart and my passion lie, so that you can step into that. Because I do believe everything you said is that God gives us those talents. He gives us our dreams and he gives us that opportunity now more than ever with all the resources in the world to kind of get there faster than you ever have before, right? To shrink the learning curve because that information is so accessible and all those things like that.
Love it. So let's pivot to helping the audience win.
Yeah, I love it.
We talked a lot. Obviously, they can win. We've showed them how they can win in their individual lives, their relationships, so on and so forth. And the concept of becoming an aspirational person and how important that is. Let's talk about sales.
Yeah, let's do it.
What you're a master in.
Yes.
How does you talk a lot about helping somebody build their connection story.
Yep.
Increasing their sales by 30%. Shine a light on a process that they could follow, even in their own home.
Sure.
So that they can start to reap some of those rewards.
Yeah. So sales you got to really kind of go to the foundation of what is sales. Sales equals change. Sales is change. You're asking somebody to move from where they're at, right, to follow you to whatever potential solution that is. So I had the opportunity to study with Dr. Fogg at a Stanford University. It was a cohort model, literally world renowned. This is the dude for change. And it was really fascinating, the components that affect change. So 1 is awareness, 2, the problem that I think I have, or so on. And nowadays, how important is it for your brand to come through on that? And then the second is access. So you got to make things easy and you have to bring awareness to it in order for change to be cultivated. And so the question is, if that's the baseline, that sales is change, then how do we make how do we go through that change process? So every time you meet somebody, there's only two questions they want to know. They want to know, who are you and why you? And it's in that order. Those are the only two questions, right? And so when somebody says, why you, everyone starts to, go in their back pocket. All right, let me pull out my resume. You know what I mean? As seen on TV, I've written books, I'm awesome, TED Talk, whatever. And everyone's like, well, congratulations. I'm glad you've been successful. But I want to know why you. And why you is answered with one question. Why do you love what you do? Those are the brands that matter, right? And you see it at the highest level. This isn't cheesiness. Why does Nike have one of the best brands? They're like, yeah, just do it. There's a sense of, we love who we are. We love celebrating the mud and the dirtiness. So just simply go do it, right? Steve Jobs, one of the best minds of branding, I think, that's ever been around. He understood that, hey, this was more than just software. This was a tool to give to people that they could do wonderful things with. So he celebrated genius. Remember those commercials? So people need to recognize that. And that's what I love coaching to, is that connection story. In 90 seconds, someone's like, okay, that's who you are? Well, that's pretty awesome. So you got to proclaim that to the world. And then once somebody begins to, know who you are, then you begin to move into then why you. And why you is found in your sales process. So in the process, there's only three core pieces to it. There is the promise you make to the world. There is the process that you execute on the promise. And then there's the solutions. That's your product and services. Yours is podcasting, right? So there's a promise that you have to get excellent with. It can't just be this generic, I help people on podcasts grow and whatever. You know what I mean? There has to be something rooted in something that's magical. And so we help people cultivate that promise in a way that really is kind of connected back to who they are. And then the promise, this is what makes you one of one. So this is where you build, the JJ system, the JJ method, the JJ process. You make it to where if I wanted to come, why should I work with your podcast company? Because we have a method that nobody else has. Okay, now that's interesting, right? Now you might use some of the same tools and techniques, but there has to be something magically unique about that to where people are just, they're electric about, well, I want to explore what that process is. And the solution is nothing but the product or service that it finally executes on that. And what happens is most of the time, I see it in all businesses and all verticals, people get okay at the promise. And then they just kind of jump over the cell of the process and they start vomiting their products and services. Well, here's all the bullet points and here's everything you get and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, I kind of could have figured that out online, right? So you've commoditized yourself. So you got to think through that now more than ever, that your uniqueness is found in that process. Because take a real estate agent. Can you sell me that home? Yeah. Who else can? The other thousands and thousands of real estate agents in the state, the country, or whatever, right? So then why am I going through you? It should be about, one, my connection. So let me tell you about my promise that I have for my clients, right? That's something that's really genuine, but then there's a unique process to that. So when you do that, whatever vertical you're in, I don't care what it is, and you apply that, I promise you, you're going to win, and you're going to win faster and bigger than your competition. And so that's what I call that sales foundation, because then from there, you realize that everyone you now are going to communicate with, they have, well, I'm currently here and my desired output is here. And what sits in between that is what they feel is the resistance. Okay. Those are the problems you solve. So you just want to get really good at identifying those three worlds, taking your products or services, asking the question, hey, can I help them? If the answer is yes, then you know exactly where to go about communicating that, the question funnel and all those other things that I talk about. So yeah, it's awesome and it works and I love it.
So Jason, why you? What's your connection story? Give them an example.
My connection story, I go back to last August. I had a keynote up in Boise, Idaho, and this gentleman, so it was a big room, big auditorium room. I think there was about 250, 300 people that were planning to be there. And some of those people have been in my training, and I kind of knew that going in. So I kind of had my own little, a routine before I'm going to go up and talk, kind of get mentally locked in. And this gentleman, he walks up to me and he's walking up to me and I'm like, I kind of recognize him. I'm like, I know he wants to talk to me. And so I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he goes, hey, Jason, I don't know if you remember me. I remember his face, but I meet a lot of people. And he's like, hey, it's Ken. I'm like, hey, good to see you again. And he goes, hey, I know you're going to go up, but I just need to tell you something. You've changed my life in the last 6 months. I was like, okay. I mean, that takes anybody back. And so he was at a training that I did in February. And he said, Jason, when I saw you and met you in February, I was on the brink of divorce. I was angry and I was drinking and my business was here and I felt stuck. I came to your training and he said, you remember when you said 10%? Well, that day I made a commitment. I'm like, I'm going to be the 10% that Jason's talking about. So it was in February. He goes, and here in August, I'm here to tell you this. Been married 35 years. We have found our spark like never before. We are in love with each other. I went home and I said, I'm sorry. And I literally stopped drinking and I doubled my business in 6 months. And I just wanted to say thank you. And he goes, the other reason I wanted to tell you is this. He goes, somebody in this room needs to hear your message. And he's like, I just want to encourage you to that. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I love what I do. And it's the stories like I showed you before, Carlene, who's down 40 pounds. I could literally rattle off people's lives that God has put them in front of me and I've been faithful to just deliver what I feel like I need to deliver. And that's up to him. That's his job. His job is to touch the people that are supposed to move. My job is just to deliver. And so that's my connection story. That's why I love what I do. That's why I'm going to continue to do what I love to do. And then on my skills, I'm pretty good at it.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the story you needed to hear before you went up on stage.
It was one, it's really, again, it's one of those things that's hard to describe where it wasn't motivating. It was so much more. It was more conviction in this beautiful way. Oh, I'm on the right path. Oh, okay. This is what I'm supposed to do. Not a dollar figure towards, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's just really exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, your connection story highlights your purpose, your true purpose.
Correct.
And you're good at it. You love it. And you're making a major, major impact.
I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate it. And I love talking about it. And I love the questions that you're asking. And my hope is that people that watch this podcast, one or two, are moved to move towards their better version. That's my hope.
Oh, no doubt. Then we're looking for that one, right? That 10%.
Hey, if I'm here for one person and they show up, well, they need to email you and say, hey, Brandon, hey, thanks. And pass along to Jason, hey, here's what we're doing. I'm apologizing. I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm owning something. You know what I mean? I'm quitting. I'm getting rid of the stuff. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer pissed. I'm no longer like whatever it is, and see where that takes you.
Absolutely. Is there any other advice that you would share with the audience on how to build their own personal connection stories?
Well, you went through that process. There's kind of a defined process to it. But
it's a long process, and it was a really good one.
Yeah, it's so. I would say that, it's because I bring it in business context. It's not like a documentary of Jason's past. You bring it in context because your connection story to the world is, oh, I relate to Jason the person, but I relate more to the story that brought him here, because it tells me he's going to take care of me. You know what I mean? Like that, whatever that proper connection story is. That's why I love coaching to it so much, and why I've seen time and time again of testimonials where they're like, hey, Jason, when I heard about separating myself from competition in 90 seconds, I thought, yeah, you're kind of full of shit a little bit, until I did it. And they're like, this is the most powerful tool like freaking ever. I'm like, that's why you need to say it all the time, as much as you possibly can. And so yeah, I think more to come on how to help people build their connection story, coming up with some pretty cool tools to make available.
Absolutely. And we'll be dropping all the resources down below to support you through that.
Thanks.
With that, I could talk for you for hours, man.
Same here. Let's just keep going.
You're amazing. And
Thanks.
I'm beyond blessed to have crossed paths with you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
With that in mind, as we come to an end here, is there anything I or my audience can be doing for you?
Well, first of all, thanks for the offer. I would say just supporting me, you know what I mean? What you've done. I mean, you had me on the show and just letting people know that I'm a resource. And, people that watch the show or go to my Instagram just to share it with the world. Hey, this is somebody who cares and actually can, I think, bring some value to their lives. I guess that's how you can be of help.
I love that. So 2 more questions for you.
Yeah, please.
1, what is your definition of an authentic life to you?
Definition of an authentic life is becoming the person that God designed you to be. You're never there, but you see it and you rigorously work at it every day. Because the authentic person understands the bear. The authentic person sees the bear. The authentic person fights the bear. And what comes from that is love, grace, forgiveness, and compassion. I think that's what the world needs more of. And that's what an authentic person is. So they're committed to that. They understand that there's, as the old saying is, it's not a destination, but a journey, but they really, truly lean into that. That to me is what I think is authentic.
Beautiful. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience today? Open book.
Yeah. I would say that I want to encourage them. I want to encourage to believe that they can. I want to encourage them that they were designed to do it and that they just simply need to lean into that. And to remember that once you decide to face that bear and to live a life that is anchored on creating higher standards, letting the world know, I'm not going to do that, engine it with the right habits, you will only produce results that are moving you towards that person you were meant to be. And does it make it easy? No. In fact, it makes it harder at times because you're saying no to the things you want to say yes to. But imagine this for a second. I want to go back to my quote about that old men plant trees that they'll never sit in the shade of. What if you say yes to that person? What if you say yes to your best version? How many people will benefit from that? Think about that, right? I sit here with you because I made that choice. I will show up tomorrow and I hope, because I continue to make the choice to move towards that person and I said yes to that my hope is that other people's lives will be benefited from that. So that's my question for the audience. What if you say yes to that person? Think about all the people you can impact. That's what I want to leave them with.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, it's awesome to be here.
Absolutely.
Love what you're doing.
Thank you again so much for listening to the Journey to Authenticity podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, you found value, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review. This helps me to get the most high value guests, which allows me to build the highest quality content to provide value to you. Why I have you here, I want to bring you attention that yes, I run this podcast Journey to Authenticity, although I am looking to add value to other people's audiences as well. So if you run a podcast, an event, if you have a company that has 5+ employees and you want a message of transformation to be conveyed that is actionable and can truly move people to action, go to bradenbelknap.com or the link below. I'd love to come support.